Now, one of the other things that we've seen here is that we know that these food additives create, okay, so you see here, changes in intestinal tight junction permeability. So what's the tight junction? This is the protein anchor that keeps your gut sealed, okay? Associated with industrial food additives explains the rising incidence of autoimmune disease. Remember, what causes autoimmune disease? For most people, the primary precursor to autoimmune disease is leaky gut. So again, that's that permeability, right? Intestinal permeability or hyperpermeability. So these food additives, okay, alter or change tight junctions. So you can see what I've got highlighted here. Tight junction leakage, leaky gut, is enhanced by many luminal components. What's a luminal component? Those are the substances that come through your intestines, the intestinal lumen. So commonly used industrial food additives being some of them. So the MTG or meat glue is a commonly used industrial food additive. Glucose, salt, emulsifiers, organic solvents, gluten, microbial transglutaminase, again, this one right here is meat glue, and nanoparticles are extensively and increasingly used by the food industry. All of the aforementioned additives increase intestinal permeability by breaching the integrity of tight junction paracellular transfer. In essence, what they do is they break a hole into your gut lining and they allow what's in your gut to leak into your bloodstream. So these additives are a problem, not just meat glue, but other additives as well. So this leaky gut, what is this in your gut? You know, this is poop, right? So poop is now leaking into your bloodstream, if you want to put it graphically. You get poop leaking into the bloodstream, but you also get all kinds of bacterial toxins and other waste products that are produced in the gut. So again, we know that this happens. We know that those additives are creating and increasing that. Now back to meat glue. Again, these are some of the process. So we have the food industry processing our food, okay? And this is one of the reasons why, you know, if you've listened to me or watched me for any length of time, I've always said, eat real food, don't eat out, minimize how you get your food from the hands of other people, and control your food, control where your food comes from as much as possible. But if you're buying and eating real food, you'll go a long way to improving your health. So you can see here, industrial food items, the potential pathogenic activity. So these are all the different known ways that meat glue can potentially create a problem for you. Number one, it enhances bacterial growth. Remember what microbial transglutaminase is. It's a bacterial enzyme. And so it can enhance bacterial growth. And if you've ever heard of conditions like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, you know, that can be problematic. We also know it increases gliadin uptake. So it increases how well your body will uptake that gluten and present it to the immune system. So it can actually enhance the immune system response to gluten. We know it affects the mucus quality. That's the lining, the layer that lines the GI tract. It's uptake by mucosal dendritic cells. These are specialized immune cells focused and concentrated in the mucosa of your gut. And when it's uptaken by those, it basically bogs them down and it preoccupies them. It creates luminal resistant isopeptide bonds. So basically, it creates protein bonds that make it harder for you to digest your food, okay? It enhances permeability of the gut, as I just showed you with leaky gut. It's transported transepithelially. So what that means is these compounds are transported across the epithelial barrier into, again, leaking through subepithelial, transepithelial. These are just different mechanisms by which it gets from your gut into your blood and immune system. And then it creates an immune response, and then anti-phagocytic activity. So it shuts down, in part, it creates problems with this cell type called a phagocyte, and induces specific antibody production. Okay, so it makes new proteins that cause the production of new antibodies because of, again, the cross-linked complexes being immunogenic or causing an immune response or causing an allergy. So I know that's somewhat technical, but the potential pathogenic activities in a nutshell is it makes gluten reactivity worse. It can increase things like SIBO. It enhances bacterial uptake. It causes leaky gut, and it creates new proteins that can alter the way your immune system is reacting and responding. Basically, it creates new allergies that your immune system's going to react to. So you don't want to get exposure to this stuff. I mean, if you had it once in a while on a accidental type basis, it probably wouldn't be as big of a deal. But if you're eating all these processed and packaged foods, you're going to run into some problems. You can see here, this was published in the Journal of Agriculture and Food Chemistry, transglutaminase, again, meat glue, the treatment of meat glue, using meat glue on wheat and corn. That's what maize is, corn, prolamines. These are the wheat and corn glutens, okay, of bread, increases the reactivity in celiac disease patients. So if you're buying, for example, you're buying a corn-based gluten-free bread, right? It's been treated with meat glue. What that's saying is that by treating it with meat glue, it's changed the protein in that bread, and it's increased your immune system's reactivity if you have celiac disease. So those of you with celiac disease or a gluten issue, if you're buying that gluten-free bread made out of corn, that's what this is saying, is that if that bread was treated with this enzyme, then you're going to react to it. Okay, so celiac disease mediated by IgA antibodies to weak gliadins and tissue transglutaminase. As tissue transglutaminase is homologous to microbial transglutaminase. So there's an enzyme that we make called tissue transglutaminase, or TTG. And what this microbial transglutaminase is it's homologous, so it's very similar, right? And so the problem with celiacs is that their own transglutaminase is reacting with gluten, creating a gluten that attaches to the immune system and creates a response. Well, what they're saying here is that same thing happens when you add this microbial transglutaminase. It enhances the reactivity of gluten towards your immune system. Okay, so you can see here, microbial transglutaminase used to improve foodstuffs quality. So it's used as a food additive, right? Could elicit the immune response of celiac patients. So in this study, prolamins extracted from wheat and gluten-free breads were analyzed, and IgA titers were higher against prolamines of microbial transglutaminase treated wheat. In essence, when they treated the bread with the meat glue, the immune system of celiac patients reacted more aggressively. So again, if you're celiac and you're getting that exposure, it could be the reason why you may still be struggling in your diet. And this is why I'm highlighting this and talking about it so much. You see here another study. Okay, this was published in Autoimmune Reviews. The industrial food additive microbial transglutaminase mimics tissue transglutaminase and is immunogenic in celiac disease patients. So again, part of the way that celiac disease develops is through this enzyme in our intestines called transglutaminase. Well, if we add microbial transglutaminase to our diets, it mimics our own transglutaminase, and it makes that gluten protein even more reactive, even the gluten proteins that are found in corn. Because oftentimes you'll hear that corn is gluten-free, although corn does have a gluten. It's called zein, and that using that enzyme with that corn gluten makes that corn gluten more reactive. And we see that same thing with a number of other different proteins. It makes those proteins more reactive. So you don't want to, my point is, avoid meat glue. Right, so how do we do that? Well, the first thing that you do is you eat real food, because if you eat your own real food and you can trace where your food comes from, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're going out to a restaurant, or if you're going and you're eating out, maybe you're traveling, maybe you're on vacation, these are the big things that you want to look at as potentially as avoiding at all costs. So now, hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.